Daddy, why can't we go into the woods again?
A small 7-year-old boy asks, voice curious, as he gets into bed. He pulls his covers over him as he lays down. The boy's mother gives him a small smile and helps him settle in. The moonlight casts a soft glow through the window. Alexei's mother. The woods are very dangerous and hold a great evil within that preys on people. The boy looks at his mother with curious yet confused eyes. Alexei's mother. The Näkki live there.
The naughty?
He asks curiously, causing his mother to let out a small chuckle. Alexei's mother. Näkki. They are water spirits that live within a lake at the center of the woods. They look friendly and beautiful, but they are not. They are shapeshifters that lure you to them. When you are within their grasp, they drag you down with them into the water where you can never leave. The boy gasps in shock at his mother's words.
Never? Alexei's mother, never. Once they have you, they eat you.
The boy's bright emerald green eyes are wide with fear. Alexei's mother. Promise me, Alexei, that you will never go into the woods. The woman fiercely asks her son, her own emerald eyes pleading. The boy looks at his mother.
I promise.
The mother gives her son a kiss on his forehead and bids him good night. This legend of the Näkki is one the mothers of Eldmere, Finland, have always told their children. Stay out of the woods, lest the Näkki will take you away forever. As children, we held the legend with childlike contempt. They scared us enough to where we listened, but we were still children. We would tease each other at school the next day. One of us would pretend to be the Näkki and chase the rest of us around at recess. Alexei, Gareth and Marky are here. I hear my mother shout from the front door. I quickly stuff the rest of my korvapusti into my mouth. Licking cinnamon off of my fingers, I quickly grab my bag and head to the front door. I can see my friends waiting at the bottom of the steps.
I'll see you later, Ati.
I say, giving her a quick kiss on the cheek. Before I can step out of the door, she grabs me by the arm. Alexei's mother. Alexei.
Yes?
I sigh, already knowing what's about to happen. Gareth and Marky look up at us, also knowing, before heading to the end of the walkway. I turn my attention back to my mother, Alexei's mother. Have fun, and please do not go into the woods.
I know.
I tell her, my voice comes out a bit harsh. She flinches slightly, causing me to sigh.
Olen pahoillani, Ati.
I say as I embrace her.
I know, Ati, I promise.
I tell her. Her bright eyes search mine for a second, before nodding her head. Alexei's mother. I'll see you tomorrow, she tells me. Giving her another kiss on the cheek, I leave the house and walk towards my friends.
Are you ready?
Gareth asks, a wide smile on his face. His dark, russet-brown eyes sparkle, and his broad shoulders hum in excitement. I look at Mackie with a raised eyebrow, to which he shrugs his shoulders.
You're pretty excited, huh?
I ask as we walk down the road. The streets are slowly dying down as people pack up their vendors for the day and start making their way home. The sun's descent paints the sky with pink, orange, yellow, and purple.
Of course I'm excited. This meteor shower is the most exciting thing to happen in this town since Mrs. Lottie got caught sleeping with the mailman by her husband. You can't tell me you're not excited about seeing an actual meteor shower?
I am. Eldmere is almost completely surrounded by woods and is a small town compared to others in Finland. With less than 300 people here and 3 stoplights, there isn't much to do here.
It is exciting, and it's nice to get out of the house.
Is your mom still fighting with your sister?
When are they not fighting? It's gotten even worse over the past couple of months with Ian's new boyfriend, who I'm pretty sure she's dating just to irritate mom.
Ian is a little over a year younger than Maki and has always been difficult. She seems to crave getting into trouble.
The arguing has gotten bad enough to where Dad has been staying in the den when he's not at work. Though now it's more of Mom shouting and Ayn ignoring her.
Well, this will be a good distraction.
The streets of Eldmere grow quieter as we make our way towards the creek. Vendors finish packing up their stalls, and the last stragglers head home, their silhouettes fading into the twilight. Our footsteps echo softly on the cobblestone path, mingling with the distant sounds of nature settling down for the night. The air is crisp, filled with the scent of pine and earth, a reminder of the woods that loom just beyond the town's edge.
This is going to be awesome.
I've read that the meteor shower tonight is supposed to be the best one in decades.
Yeah, I saw that too. It's about time we had something exciting happen around here.
As we near the creek, the sounds of laughter and chatter reach our ears. A group of our classmates has already gathered, the flicker of a bonfire casting dancing shadows across their faces. The atmosphere is charged with excitement, a sense of camaraderie that only comes from shared anticipation.
This is where we belong tonight. No worries, no parents, just us and the stars.
Marky and I exchange a knowing glance, both silently acknowledging the unspoken promise we made to our mothers. But tonight, we push those thoughts aside, determined to enjoy the rare spectacle of the meteor shower. The fire crackles warmly, its light a beacon in the encroaching darkness. We settle around it, joining the group and adding our voices to the hum of conversation. The creek's gentle babble provides a soothing backdrop, blending harmoniously with the soft strumming of a guitar from somewhere in the circle.
Look, it's starting.
All heads turn upwards as the first streaks of light cut through the heavens. Gasps of awe ripple through the crowd, and for a moment, all else is forgotten in the face of nature's grandeur.
It's beautiful.
For the first time in weeks, he seems genuinely at peace, and I feel a sense of relief wash over me. Maybe tonight will be the distraction he desperately needs.
See, I told you this would be worth it. Moments like these, we'll remember them forever.
Yeah, you were right. This is incredible.
As the meteors continue to streak across the sky, I catch sight of Ayn and Kala by the creek, their figures barely visible in the dim light. They seem to be in their own world, stepping into the water hand in hand. A pang of unease tugs at me, but I push it aside, not wanting to spoil the moment.
Isn't that Ayn and Kala? Are they heading into the woods?
Ayn!
Mackie's head snaps up at Gareth's words, his eyes narrowing as he spots his sister. He shouts, but she doesn't seem to hear him. With a determined expression, he takes off towards the creek, Gareth and Alexei hot on his heels. By the time they reach the edge of the woods, Ayn and Kala have disappeared into the shadows. Mackie's calls grow more frantic, echoing through the trees. The darkness feels oppressive, the air thick with an unsettling silence broken only by the rustling of leaves underfoot.
Are you sure about this?
Gareth asks, his voice barely a whisper. The fear in his eyes mirrors Alexei's own, but he pushes it down. Ayn is out there and they can't leave her.
We can't just leave her in there, especially not with him.
We'll be fine. It's just a story, right?
Gareth hesitates, but finally nods, stepping in beside them. Together they venture into the woods, their phones providing the only light. The further they go, the more oppressive the atmosphere becomes, each step amplifying the sense of dread that hangs in the air. Mackie's voice rings out through the darkness, calling for Ayn. The crunch of leaves underfoot is the only response at first, but then Alexei hears it, a faint, almost imperceptible sound. A scream. Alexei's heart races as they quicken their pace, their breaths coming in ragged gasps.
Ayn!
Mackie's shout is desperate, and this time a faint reply reaches them.
Mackie!
Her voice is filled with terror, urging them forward. Suddenly Gareth stumbles and falls, and Alexei shines his light to reveal Ayn, trembling and bloodied.
Ayn, are you okay? What happened?
Mackie's voice is frantic as he helps her up. Her eyes are wide with fear, her body shaking uncontrollably.
We have to leave. They're real. The Näkki, they're real.
Alexei's blood runs cold at her words, his mother's warnings echoing in his mind. Before they can react, an unearthly screech fills the air, and they know they have to run.
Run!
Alexei shouts, grabbing Ain's hand. They sprint through the woods, the screeches growing louder, closer. Fear grips Alexei, but he pushes forward, determined to get them out. The darkness seems to close in around them, but they can't stop. Not now, not ever. Branches whip at their faces, tearing at their clothes as they run. The forest floor seems to rise and fall beneath their feet, treacherous in the darkness. Ain stumbles, her breath coming in ragged gasps, but Näkki keeps a firm grip on her arm, dragging her forward. Gareth pants behind Alexei, his face pale in the moonlight filtering through the trees.
This can't be happening, it's just a story. It's not real.
But deep down, they all know the truth. Ain's terrified whispers, the blood staining her clothes, and the unearthly screeches echoing through the woods paint a horrifying picture. The legend of the Näkki, once dismissed as a childhood tale, has become their living nightmare.
We have to keep moving! We can't let it catch us!
Alexei shouts, his voice hoarse. The screeches are getting closer, the sound chilling them to the bone. Adrenaline surges through Alexei's veins, urging him forward. His lungs burn, his legs scream for respite, but he pushes himself harder, driven by a primal fear he's never known. A low-hanging branch catches Ain, sending her sprawling. Näkki cries out, reaching for her, but she's already back on her feet, her eyes wide with terror.
We have to get to the creek. It's our only chance.
Her words spur them onward. The sound of rushing water grows louder, a beacon of hope in the darkness. They burst out of the trees, stumbling onto the rocky bank of the creek. The moon reflects off the water's surface, casting an eerie glow on their surroundings. But there's no time to catch their breath. The screeches are right behind them, closer than ever. Alexei whirls around, his heart pounding in his chest. Standing at the edge of the trees is a figure that sends a shiver down his spine. It's the Näkki, just as Ain described. Its skin is deathly pale, its eyes black and soulless, its long white hair dripping with what looks like blood. But it's the creature's face that truly chills Alexei to the core. Twisted into a grotesque mockery of beauty, it's a mask of pure malice, promising pain and death. A scream catches in Alexei's throat, but before he can utter a sound, the creature lunges. It moves with unnatural speed, its claws outstretched, its eyes fixed on him with a hunger that makes his blood run cold. Alexei throws himself to the side, narrowly avoiding its grasp. The creature slams into the ground where Alexei stood a moment before, its claws scraping against the rocks. He scrambles back, his mind racing. They're outmatched, outgunned, and utterly unprepared for this.
No.
Gareth lets out a cry, his voice thick with terror. Näkki stands frozen, his eyes wide with disbelief. But Ain, despite her fear, seems to find a reserve of strength.
Run, get to the water.
She screams, scrambling towards the creek.
Her words jolt me back into action. I scramble to my feet, my eyes darting between the approaching creature and the rushing water. There's nowhere left to run. The creek is our only hope. But before we can make a move, the Näkki attacks again. It slams into Gareth, sending him flying through the air. He lands with a sickening thud, his body crumpled on the ground. I hear Maki cry out, a sound of pure anguish, but I don't dare take my eyes off the creature. It turns its attention to me, its lips pulling back in a snarl that reveals rows of razor-sharp teeth. I close my eyes, bracing for the end, but the blow never comes. I open my eyes to see a figure standing between me and the creature. My breath catches in my throat. It's my mother. Her face is pale but resolute. In her hand, she holds a simple hunting bow, an arrow nocked and aimed at the creature's heart.
"Get back," she says, her voice low and steady. "I'll hold it off."
"Aiti, no!" I cry, reaching out to her. "You can't fight that thing!"
But she ignores me, her eyes locked on the Näkki. "Go!" she shouts, her voice filled with a power I've never heard before. "Get to safety! I'll be right behind you!"
I hesitate, torn between the need to obey her and the overwhelming urge to protect her. But I know she's right. We're no match for this creature.
Come on, Näkki shouts, grabbing my arm and pulling me towards the creek. We have to go.
With a final desperate glance back at my mother, I turn and run. The sound of the Näkki's enraged roar echoes behind me, but I don't look back. I don't stop running until we're far from the creek, far from the woods. far from the nightmare that has become our reality. As we collapse on the ground, our chests heaving, the weight of what we've just experienced crashes down on me. We're alive, but at what cost? And then a single terrifying thought pierces through the fog of fear and exhaustion. My mother stayed behind. Terror claws at my throat, choking off the air in my lungs. My mother, she stayed behind to face that thing, alone. Maki and Gareth are slumped against a tree, their faces pale and drawn in the moonlight. They're alive. We're alive. But the knowledge brings no comfort. Not while my mother's fate hangs in the balance. We have to go back, I rasp, pushing myself to my feet. My legs tremble, still shaky from the chase, but the thought of leaving my mother behind is unbearable.
Alexei, no, Maki says, his voice ragged. It's suicide. We can't fight that thing.
He's right, Gareth whispers, his eyes wide with terror. We barely got out alive ourselves.
But their words fall on deaf ears. I can't leave her. I won't. Turning back towards the looming darkness of the woods, I ignore the fear that threatens to consume me. I have to try, I say, my voice firm despite the tremor in my heart. She's my mother. The clearing is empty. There's no sign of my mother, no sign of the creature, only a scattering of arrows, their shafts gleaming dully in the moonlight. Aiti? I call out, my voice echoing through the silent trees. My heart sinks with each passing second that brings no reply. Had we been too late? Had the creature taken her?
Over here.
Gareth's voice is sharp with urgency. He's crouched beside a towering oak, his face pale in the moonlight. I rush towards him, my heart pounding. He points to the base of the tree, and I follow his gaze. There, carved into the rough bark, is a symbol I recognize with a jolt of fear. It's the mark of the Näkki. My blood runs cold. If the creature marked this tree, it means...
It took her,
Maki says, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. He looks away, unable to meet my gaze. I stumble back, my legs suddenly weak. No, it can't be true, she can't be gone. But as I stare at the symbol carved into the tree, a glimmer of hope flickers in the darkness. The mark is fresh. The sap is still seeping from the wound in the bark. She's alive, and she's trying to tell us something.
We press on, our pace quickening, driven by a desperate hope and a growing sense of urgency. The trail leads us deeper into the woods, towards the heart of the creature's domain. And then we hear it, a low growl, guttural and menacing, echoing through the trees. It's closer this time, closer than ever before. We exchange uneasy glances, our eyes wide with fear. There's nowhere left to run, nowhere left to hide. Maki whispers, his voice barely audible. He points to a towering oak ahead, its branches twisted and gnarled, its bark scarred and ancient. And there, carved into the trunk, is another symbol. The same symbol we saw before, the mark of the Näkki. But this time, there's something different. Beneath the creature's mark, etched into the bark with a sharp blade, is another symbol, an arrow, S3. Media, hands pointing to a carved arrow on a tree, finger tracing an arrow symbol on tree bark. There!
My heart leaps in my chest. It's a message, a sign. My mother is alive, and she's trying to guide us to her.
We follow the trail of arrows, our hope renewed, our fear tempered by a newfound determination. The forest seems less menacing now, the shadows less threatening. We are no longer prey, hunted by an unseen terror. We are hunters ourselves, tracking a creature far more ancient and powerful than we could have ever imagined. The air grows colder as we approach our destination, a sense of otherworldly presence settling over the woods. The moonlight seems to dim, the shadows deepening, as if the forest itself is holding its breath. And then we emerge into a clearing. It's unlike any place I've ever seen before. The trees surrounding the clearing are ancient, their branches reaching towards the sky like gnarled fingers. The air shimmers with an unnatural light, a pale, ethereal glow that seems to emanate from the very ground itself.
In the center of the clearing stands a solitary figure, my mother. She stands tall and proud, her eyes blazing with a fierce light. In her hands she holds a bow and arrow, her aim steady, her gaze fixed on something we cannot see. But as we watch, we hear it. A low growl, deep and resonant, vibrating through the very air we breathe. It's coming from behind her, from the shadows beneath the ancient trees, and then it emerges.
The Näkki. It towers over my mother, its form shifting, its edges blurring in and out of existence. One moment it resembles a grotesque parody of a human, the next a swirling vortex of teeth and claws and darkness. The air crackles with an unseen energy, the very earth seeming to tremble beneath its weight. I want to scream, to run, to do anything but stand here frozen in terror. But my mother, her face a mask of grim determination, doesn't hesitate. She raises her bow, her movements fluid and precise, her gaze never leaving the creature. An arrow is knocked, a shaft of ash fletched with feathers as white as snow. The air hums with a power I can't comprehend, a power that seems to emanate from my mother, from the arrow, from the very forest itself. The Näkki lunges, a blur of teeth and claws and fury. But my mother is ready. The arrow flies, a silver streak against the encroaching darkness. It strikes the creature in the chest, burying itself deep in its writhing form. A sound like 1,000 voices screaming in unison erupts from the Näkki, a sound that seems to tear at the very fabric of reality. It thrashes, its form flickering, its edges dissolving into the shadows. Then, with a final ear-splitting shriek, it's gone. Silence descends upon the clearing, heavy and absolute. The air shimmers, the unnatural light fading, the trees seeming to sigh in relief as the presence of the creature lifts. My mother lowers her bow, her body swaying slightly, her face pale with exhaustion. But she is alive, she is victorious, and somewhere, deep within the ancient heart of the forest, the legend of the Näkki is whispered on the wind. A cautionary tale, a reminder of the power that lies hidden in the shadows and the courage it takes to face them.